hope you can hear. Good evening. To be very frank with you, I don't know how to begin. It's a very weird occasion to come on stage, and that too in IIT, because largely when I was here in 73 to 79, I joined in 73 mechanical engineering. One of the funny things that we have this batch nomenclature, which I have a little struggle with, is oftentimes you're asked what batch, and you're supposed to tell the year that you passed out. I always sort of get reminded of ladies, you don't ask the age, right? Not considered very nice. I think similarly with IITians, you shouldn't ask which year they passed out, but which year they joined in, because that's the pedigree that you carry on. So I did join in 73, passed out in 79 December. I took almost a year and a half extra. One confession that I would like to make right away is the reason why I said this is a weird occasion, because I wasn't a particularly very studious kind of a student. I was typically the three-idiot variety. So largely I was not necessarily in the class but doing other things. But these 6.5 years in IIT did definitely contribute to my life. One of the most cherished period that I remember in my life is those 6.5 years that I spent on the campus. Something interesting which happened during those 6.5 years, apart from tests were there and somehow you had to slog and somehow get through. But apart from that, staying in hostels with sort of similar age group, doing a whole lot of freaky things, getting into organizing a whole lot of things, Mudunigo, mountaineering expeditions, or it was Himankan, variety of things. I think that really shaped in many ways what I became today. So a large credit goes to those 6.5 years. I think you have to really look back and think about what it gave me. The technical side of it I don't want to talk much about because I wasn't anyways very good at it. One confession that I would like to make is in around end of the third year, I was almost on the verge of getting out. A whole lot of pile up of summers and variety of things. But my father came around and told me something, and very few times we listen to our own fathers. But that was on one occasion when I heard him. And he said that you've already spent 3 years. Why don't you finish IIT and then do whatever you want to do? Because it carries a reasonable clout. And to be very frank with you, let me be open that even today when I tell people that, hey, I'm an IIT graduate, I don't know what I'm saying is important or not, but suddenly people start looking up. And it's quite heartening. But more importantly, it does give you a platform, and which I would like to share with you that, hey, you are in IIT and that's something which is fantastic. I think something good that we did was the entrance exam part of it. After that, I think largely depends on you, how you use your, not 5 years these days, 4 years. But a whole lot of things can be done in these 6.5, I use 6.5 years, but 4 years or 5 years. Because one thing in terms of attitude that I picked up, and I think in our lives, 2 or 3 things become extremely important. Largely, either it is a set of events, many a times it's some personalities that impact you, and there are certain contexts which impact your life. And to me, I think IIT is one such big context. Because I remember those days going out on outings, organizing expeditions, variety of things. Largely the ambience in IIT was pretty supportive. You always had budget constraints and a whole lot of things. I just now met few people outside and talking about different projects, and they were sort of trying to impress me how good work they are trying to do. But I could see myself standing there and trying to sort of convince somebody else that, hey, we are doing something good, would you support us? And that's something which I cultivated in IIT, definitely. Because variety of things that I did later on, I passed out in 79. Mountaineering was like, it was not a hobby, but a passion. So the whole idea was in Himalayan mountaineering kind of scene, there are 2 seasons for climbing. One is called as pre-monsoon and another one is post-monsoon. So something like May, June and September, October. So the whole idea was B.Tech was for bread and butter, but how can I manage 2 expeditions in a year? And that was the whole passion or the drive. So whichever organization I was working with, it was easy enough to find a month's vacation to go on an expedition. But by the time it came around to going for the second expeditions, it was time for me to leave. And that's what I did. Went for the second expedition, came back, picked up another job. So I did work in the industry for about 5 or 6 years and almost same number of jobs, about 5 or 6 jobs. Something interesting happened when I sort of left IIT and I was getting onto my own feet. I was involved with a bunch of sort of a voluntary organization, a bunch of friends. We were starting to work with school children, 8 to 14-year-olds, and taking them out for adventure camps in Western Ghats, and that's how it began for me. In the first year itself, after initial difficulties with parents, schools, etc., we were able to take out something like 1,000 children in a year, different camps, but the total number went beyond 1,000. And that was pretty exciting and overwhelming for me. In many ways, that prompted me to do something more in this field, and which eventually got converted into I doing a 1-year teacher's diploma in Scotland. That triggered off a whole lot of things. High Places as a company began in UK. It was primarily an adventure travel company. The idea was getting British client groups into Indian Himalayas. So I was one Indian partner and the rest of the 4 were Britishers. Luckily enough, I got also introduced to something else, which was a kind of medium or kind of programs which are called as outdoor-based management development programs or outbound learning programs. Now, this was a completely different side of things apart from just pure adventure. The adventure experience outdoor as an ambience is used for a whole lot of soft skills, if you want to call it, which is really looking at interpersonal skills. So these are the kind of programs which were pretty popular in those days in the Western countries. And luckily enough, in '85, I got my first experience of working on these kind of programs. '89, it so happened that we did a first ever program in India for a corporate client, Bharat Petroleum. And slowly that started ticking, and that was almost 23 years back. We began with doing 2 or 3 programs a year, these kind of leadership development or team building programs based in the outdoors for corporate clients. It began with 2 or 3 programs, and today we do about 700 odd programs in a year. So it began with 2 or 3 friends, and today it's a 150 people strong kind of an organization. But that was largely the professional side, but once again, I didn't keep doing engineering, which I wasn't very good at anyways, but I was good at other things and which came handy. And one thing helped in terms of IIT as an education was, really there was a kind of brashness which I picked up from IIT. That karke dekhte hai yaar kya hota hai. And that really helped in many ways, and there was, I think, a sincere wish and desire to sort of apply yourself, go after it. And these 2 things really helped because there were a whole lot of problems. At home, it wasn't very nice. I think my mother experienced the worst brunt of it because people used to say कि यार IIT किया है, इतना कुछ किया है, करता तो कुछ नहीं है, लड़का बिगड़ गया. And that was largely the kind of comment she had to receive almost for 10 years. But today I think things have turned around and people sort of look up to that, oh, he is doing something and I'm his uncle and stuff like that. People reorient themselves. So that is not something to be afraid of. But I think when we were sitting there, somebody was asking what is the message and stuff like that. I don't really believe in that. But I think if I had to share something with you and the kind of people who are sitting here and who would be getting out, yeah, I think if you're good in engineering, definitely do it. No issues about it. But I think it'll be worthwhile to also look at what really takes you, what's your passion, what excites you. And can you give enough weightage to that? Because I think there are a whole lot of forces, a whole lot of people around you who will keep pushing you into something which is stereotyped. Yaar, ye lafda mat karo, wo lafda mat karo. There will be a whole lot of people who will keep frightening you. But I think it's worthwhile to really go after where your heart is. What do you like? It might be in engineering. I'm not saying engineering is bad or anything like that. But more importantly, what you would like to do, where your heart is, if you can follow that. I think the biggest thing which I discovered, if you're able to persist with it, I think it pays off. Many times people get jittery that you try something and then, oh, it's not working out and you want to run away from it. But if you can persist with it, I think a whole lot of things can happen. And believe me, one thing is, it's one kind of a special community, IITians. Anywhere you go, you discover these people. And they're quite helpful, believe me. Even if they are not in your batch, even if they are not there when you were in IIT and stuff like that. And I remember one incident in sort of London. I was trying to get French visa. And I was in those days where I was a poor student in a foreign country kind of thing. And I was trying to get the French visa, and I went into the office, and there was a guy, a suited guy, who looked Indian. And eventually, when the line sort of went up to the counter, we were told that, oh, this particular office has been shifted around, and which meant traveling a bit and getting along somewhere else. I was curious about this Indian looking guy. So when he came down, I just inquired him, are you Indian? He said, yes. And I knew that he was going to take a cab. So I was smart enough to latch on to it. When we sat in the cab, I just started talking, and it turned out that he was an IITian. And certainly the kind of sort of fraternity or brotherhood or immediate vibes kind of a thing which happened. Yeah, because you're an IITian, and that's kind of taken as a passport or a kind of people connect with you very easily. And it is a privilege, it is a special community which you will keep encountering in the world, in the country, definitely. So if you're able to persist with it, there would be people who will come around and say, yeah, IIT nahi hai banda, kuch karte hai. And I keep encountering that all along, believe me. So one of the things I'd like to leave with you is, beyond a message or anything like that, that it has been exciting, because one thing which has helped me is the business end of it. Eventually we are smart enough to look after ourselves. We are excellent survivors. And that's one thing which I believe about IITians. We are excellent survivors, right? Yeah, be it a test or whatever. So we'll survive. To do well, to excel is something which IIT has given me. Well, I remember Mood Indigo or whatever, means IIT, the Mount Club started in 72. And that time I remember it was 1 year before me. And the budget was something like 20,000. And by the time I left IIT, the budget was somewhere in some 6 lakhs or 10 lakhs or something like that. So I think whatever begins in IIT, it's very easy for people to sort of strive for excellence and do something big. I think that's something which is there in Powai water or whatever. You get that. But I think it'll be worthwhile to cherish it and nurture it as you go along. And that's something which I got from IIT, and I was able to pursue it as I went along. Recently, a few years back, I did some 2 or 3 photography exhibitions. That was another hobby. Somehow, fortunately or unfortunately, my interests don't remain to be as hobbies. They become passions in a way. So photography was another passion of that kind. Presently, I've just written a first Marathi novel for myself, and it's doing extremely well. But believe me that if you pick up something and you're really after it, and your heart says that you want to do it, I think if you have the ability and the courage to persist with it, I'm sure that you will succeed. All that I would like to say is that all the best, and sort of try hard, and all the best for that. If there are any questions or whatever, I'll be more than happy to answer those. How do you want to take it? Yeah.